welcome back. My name is Jen, and today I just wanted to talk about different ways that you can store up your food for long-term storage. If you're someone who is just getting into food storage and building up your pantry for long-term, so I just wanted to discuss a few of the ways that I put things up to really extend their shelf life. So hopefully, down the road when I need it'll be as fresh as possible. When I first got into this several years ago, I had a lot of questions about how to store things, different ways that you could store them, oxygen absorbers and mylar bags and 5-gallon buckets, different ways that I've stored up my food to give it the best shelf life possible. I'm going to leave a link in the description box for a website called US Emergency Supply. They're a great resource to use when you have any questions about using oxygen absorbers, what size mylar bags you should get, and what size oxygen absorbers goes into those bags. But I'll go over everything that I'm storing today. Today I have some white rice, some beans, and some flour to put up. So let's start. So here I just have a 5-gallon bucket. I got this at, I believe I got this at Home Depot with a gamma lid. These things are amazing. They make getting into your buckets a lot quicker and easier. You don't have to fight with them. You can open it and then seal it right back up, and it's an airtight seal. So they come like this. All you have to do is kind of twist it off here. My dog is down there drinking. If you can hear him, I apologize. We're going to use a rubber mallet to get the top on here. So it's very easy. This is on there nice and tight. We don't have to worry about it again. And the top goes right on and it's sealed up, airtight. So when you start getting into looking at mylar bags for long-term storage, they come in all different sizes. This is a 5-gallon bag that fits directly into the bucket, and I can hold about 36 pounds of rice if I put it in here. Now, if you don't want to get the bags, you certainly don't have to. You can just put your rice directly into the bucket with the oxygen absorber, and it will last as long. I just like this for a little extra protection. When you're looking for your mylar bags, you want to make sure that they're at least 5 mils thick. And they can also go higher, but at least 5 mils, because that will give you the best protection against UV light and any kind of moisture. Another thing to consider when you're putting food up in mylar bags is that it has to be low moisture, so 10% or less of moisture. Otherwise, you run the risk of botulism in your container, whatever container you're using. So again, things like white rice, not brown rice, it has too much of an oil content, flour, wheat berries, oats, beans, pasta, all that kind of stuff is a perfect candidate to go in these bags with an oxygen absorber. Just gonna put it right in here. Alright, so I wasn't able to do it on the counter. It was too high for me to pour it, so I'm just going to do it on the floor real quick and show you what I do. Push out as much of the air as possible, and I'm not going to close it all the way because we still have to put the oxygen absorber in there. Alright, onto the flour. So I've got all-purpose white flour here. This is a 12-pound bag, and I like to separate it into 1-pound bags with the mylar. I just find that this is what fits perfectly into my container that I keep in the kitchen. So once I open one of these bags, I can put it into that container and work through that. Another way that you could do that is if you wanted to just get one of those 5-gallon bags and just put a bunch of flour into that bag, you could certainly do that too. But I just like to separate it because this is what I know that I'm going to work through, and I feel like it keeps it fresh a little bit longer. So this here is a bag from Wallaby. It's another great company that I love. They're nice because they'll sit directly on the counter. I still tend to put them in a pan just to give me a little bit more stability. And then we'll just start adding some of the flour in here until we're almost full. I don't fill it all the way. I like to have a little room on top so I can fold it down, and I can usually fit 4 to 5 of these into a 5-gallon bucket. And again, we're going to leave this open until they're all filled up, and we're going to put our oxygen absorbers in all at once. Some of the benefits I find to using the mylar with the O2 absorbers is that it really extends the shelf life of the foods that I want for me and my family in the future. During the pandemic, it was a big wake-up call to realize just how quick our food supply could dwindle down to nothing. There was a period of time where I couldn't find any flour, and I love to bake and cook, so it was really it was a stressful time not being able to find all the things that we needed for our families. Another benefit with the O2 absorbers is that it will kill off some of the things that we put away, like the flour and the rice and things like that do sometimes have insects in them. So using the O2 absorbers, it kills off any of those insects, so you're not going to have any harm when you go to eat your food. Also, sometimes if you leave some of this stuff just like this in your pantry, if there are any insects in there, those can then extend to kind of infiltrate the rest of your pantry. So the oxygen absorbers come in all different varieties from different companies. One of the things I love about Wallaby is that they send them in these little 10 packs. So if you're doing a smaller project where you're only doing a few things, you can just open them up, quickly put them into a jar, and then seal them up with some of these attachments. Or if you have a food sealer, you can also use that with these lid attachments. They go on here, and you can quickly seal up the rest of your O2 absorbers, so that way they're not losing any of their effectiveness. These are some that I had gotten from US Emergency Supply, and I like them, but they come in these big, huge packs, so it's a little bit more to manage and a little bit more to put away, so I really like that they come in 10 packs from Wallaby. So for our 5-gallon bucket of rice, I usually like to put a 2,000 cc in there, and again, if you're going to a resource of the US Emergency Supply, they have a really great resource that you can look at and kind of see what needs what. For today, what I'm doing is a 5-gallon bucket, which I'm going to use a 2,000 cc, and then the 1-gallon bags of flour, I'm going to put about 800 cc's in there. Now, it's okay if you put too much, it's not going to hurt anything, opposed to not putting enough, because then if you don't put enough, it's not going to do its job, and if you go to use the food in a couple of years, it may have spoiled. I would just say always put maybe a little bit extra if you're not sure. One more thing is flour and rice are a lot more dense as opposed to something like beans and pasta. Those are less dense. So you're going to need more of the O2 absorbers than you would with the flour and the rice. There are impulse sealers that you can use, but I just use an extra straightener that I have, and it works beautifully. I love it, no problems. It's super quick and easy. These are 400 cc's each. Wallaby comes, if you buy it in a set, it comes with one standard size, and then you can just add however many you need to your package. So I'm going to put 2 each in the flour. And I'm going to close the bag. You want to make sure that you haven't gotten any flour or anything inside to prevent it from sealing shut. And kind of push out the air as you go. Now I have 5 left for my bag of rice. I left the little corner open. I'm just going to throw all these in here. Try to spread them out a little bit. It doesn't really matter, but... And then again, push it down to get as much air out as possible. all sealed up, and we're just going to go up around the top here. Hold it for a few seconds and just seal it up tight. And like I said, I can usually put I think 4 to 5 of these per 5-gallon bucket. You could also just use any standard storage bin. I would stick with like a dark color to keep all the light out, and a heavy duty one just to keep, if you do have any mice or anything, it'll protect your food a little bit more. Right now I'm currently going through rice that I packaged up like this almost 2 years ago, and it's still perfectly fresh. No problems at all with it. So my reason for doing this is you just never know with inflation the way that it is what tomorrow's prices are going to be. So if I can buy this stuff now at an affordable price, you know, maybe next year it won't be as affordable, but I'll still have it. And I'm just going to do the same thing here with the rice. And if you're just starting out doing this, it's only going to take out the oxygen. So sometimes you will see your bags kind of suck in like they've been vacuum sealed, and other times they won't do that. But it's still, it's the same. It's not going to affect the quality of your food at all. I would have some bags that would do it and some bags that wouldn't, and I always worried that maybe I had to redo them or maybe the oxygen absorber wasn't good. But as long as it's a fresh batch, some of them do come with this little eye that kind of tells you if they're still effective or not. But as long as they're pliable and soft, you can pretty much trust that it's still effective. It usually takes 4 hours or so for the O2 absorbers to completely do what they're supposed to do in the bag. So I just like to keep them out where I can see them. I don't seal them up until usually the next day. And then of course it's super important to label everything. You want to make sure that you're labeling everything, because in a year you're not going to remember, at least I don't remember, what I've put in there. Wallabies comes with these little labels. You can just stick them on your bag, and a year or two later when you're going to get them out, you'll know what you have. If you don't want to go the mylar bag route, you can always do things in glass jars. You can use pint size, quart size, gallon size, whatever size suits your needs. These are 1-pound packages of beans. I'm just going to dunk them in my jar. Now I do canning, so I save all of my used lids, because then I can use them for things like this where I'm going to vacuum seal things up in a jar. So definitely, if you're into canning, don't throw away your used lids. You can't use them again to process the foods, but they can always be used for other projects. All right, so we've got this together, and I'm just going to show you one more quick way that you can put away your food for long term. It's just another way to seal up beans if you don't have the glass jars or don't want to use them, and you don't want to use the mylar, but you have a vacuum sealer. All right, so I've got my vacuum sealer here, and I just buy the bags that you can cut to size. We're going to seal that end up. I've cut the top to allow for the air to be removed. And the nice thing about doing it this way, if you do have a vacuum sealer, is that you don't have to worry about an oxygen absorber if you don't want to. You certainly could add one in there, but you don't have to, and you just want to keep this again in a cool, dry, dark place. And really the best temperature is below 70 degrees if possible. but we all have to do what we can do in our homes. My food storage area in the summertime gets sometimes a little bit over 70 degrees. There's nothing I can do about that, but I just do the best that I can do. And the textured side goes up. I am not going to put an O2 absorber in this. And you can do this with anything. If you have packages of noodles that you can use as a quick side, this is a great way to store them. The only thing that I would say about using vacuum sealing to preserve all of your food for long term is that sometimes these bags have a chance of being punctured and they could lose their seal. But as long as you're checking on them periodically, you should be okay. So this is hard as a rock, perfect to go in storage. I left all the instructions on there. You can also use the side of the bag to label. I just didn't do it before I vacuum sealed, so it's too hard to do now. All right, so I just wanted to show you super quick how I want to seal up these beans in a jar, if that's something that you want to do. So I am going to open up a new pack. These are 400 each, and 400 will be plenty in a quart-sized jar. And I said we want to work quick. I mean, you don't have to work like super speedy, but you want to be relatively quick. And ideally, these should probably go in a smaller jar, but I don't have one available right now. So I'm just going to put those in there, put my top on, use my jar sealer attachment. We're going to put that on there straight. Got the attachment here. And then this part goes here. Now you're going to take this off. We've got a perfect seal. We're going to do the same thing here with the beans. Take it off. Make sure we're sealed. Perfect. And I do usually store things that I vacuum sealed with a lid. And again, you don't have to put the oxygen absorber in there. I just do it because it makes me feel better. But it's really not necessary if you're vacuum sealing with your attachments. All right, so I hope that you got something out of this video. What I wanted to share with you was really just how quick you can put up your food to make it last a lot longer than if you were just to leave it in the containers that they came in. If you're starting your food storage journey and you're ready to start putting things up for longer term, like several years, these are some options that you can use. The 5-gallon buckets, the mylar bags, you can seal them up in jars. You can also use your vacuum sealer as another way to seal things up. So any of the things that we talked about, such as flour, rice, beans, pasta, cornmeal, powdered milks, freeze-dried coffee, or even regular coffee, if you put them into a mylar bag with an O2 absorber, you're gonna extend your life. It's not gonna be super long term, but at least a couple of years extra. Like I said, the flours that I'm opening up now and using are about 2 years old, and they're perfectly fine. Some of the forever foods that I like to store are honey, sugar, salt, freeze-dried coffee. Just remember, if you're putting away sugar, salt, baking powder, baking soda, you never ever want to use an O2 absorber. It will just literally turn it into a hard brick. So just stay away from those. You can just throw those into a mylar bag, or even just a bucket on its own, or into glass jars. And one other thing that I do is I save all of our glass jars that we get from pasta sauces, pickle jars, olive jars. I save all of those. It probably drives my husband a little crazy, but I like to save them all. And I like to store different things in those, like maybe things that I've dehydrated. I just put them in those jars and I seal them up, and they're much cheaper than having to go out and buy extras of these jars. So it's just another way that you can keep food stored up long term in your pantry. So I hope you got something out of this video. After a couple of hours, I will put these all into buckets, and then they'll be good for many years. The things like the beans, the pasta, oats, all of that stuff will last probably at least 30 years. But just remember, with your beans, the longer they're stored, the harder they're going to be, the more water they're going to take to rehydrate and to really be edible. So make sure that when you're storing, if you're storing up a lot of beans long term, that you're also storing up the water that you're going to need to cook those in. So I will get all this put up in our food storage area. The other thing with these is that sometimes these bags lose their seal. So that's just another thing that you want to keep in the back of your mind, maybe check on once in a while to make sure that everything is still sealed up. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you being here. Please like and subscribe, and leave me a comment and let me know what you're doing for your food storage, or if you have any questions. All right, take care.